We had a sea monster on earlier. That was huge.
A weaponized deep-sea machine. An evolutionary masterpiece. They cruise at depths even submarines don't reach. We don't know that much about them. More legend and lore than science and fact. That means most anglers enter the octagon outmanned and outgunned. The biggest among them exceed 1,000 pounds. Think about that. You're pulling an angry behemoth from depths nearing a half a mile, through 8-foot rollers and Gulf Stream currents. We spent days searching for them, but got only glimpses. A shadow mass cruising below, or a broadsword carving the whitecaps. And in its wake, danger and chaos.
Pick up that rod, pick up the rod, pick up the rod, neutral.
The pelagic punisher, the slayer of the sea, the swordfish.
Damn it.
Swordfishing isn't small talk or smiles or we'll get them next time. There's no messing around. It's truly dangerous. A blood sport where both sides have something to lose.
And that is the frustration of sword fishing. Good hook, leader's fine.
How big was that fish?
Hold it off. I'm gonna call it close to 500. Might have been a little over 500 on that jump I saw on the bow, and I would have to look at it. But that was a big fish.
I mean, look at it. This SOB is armed. A 500-pound samurai.
Came flying up and jumped off the front of the boat, but not a real chance to get from the rod to the harpoon quick enough.
And all that danger within earshot of ritzy, glitzy Palm Beach. One of the richest zip codes in the United States, most of the deep-pocketed snowbirds and blue-blazered residents don't know the action happening just offshore. The swordfish they know comes blackened with quinoa and a nice Pinot Grigio. Palm Beach is the gateway to South Florida. Not just geographically. It's the beginning of that trademark South Florida vibe. You know, Bermuda grass, imported palm trees, concrete mansions with dual lion statues. The Angler's Palm Beach is Sailfish Marina. In the morning, you will see the brunch crowds. But before first light, it's the haunt of captains and mates. The sport fishers, their office. It's also the headquarters of our fearless leader. Captain Greg Bogdan. Call him Salty. A man of many talents. We asked a well-respected marine biology professor for his scientific take on swordfish. His reply? Talk to Salty.
You know, just an incredible fish. The depths of water that they can go to be able to swim from the bottom in 2,000 feet of water and jump, and then just go right back down to the bottom. You know, the pressure gradient of most fish, like they could never do that. They feed very well up close to the surface on squids and mackerels, and then they're down on the bottom in zero light, zero visibility, feeding on all the bottom fish and different things that are here. And they get mean. I've had them attack the boat. Very aggressive fish. The divers that have tried to get in the water and I know multiple guys that have pretty much been attacked by them. Mako sharks try and eat them. I mean, they'll spin around and attack the shark.
Part marine biologist, part captain. All in. Nothing half-assed. 30 years of salt in the face and 20-knot winds. Into the blue we go, hunting the hunter, hoping to succeed. We'll keep our Kevlar-covered fingers crossed.
Your main thing with rigging these baits is you try and keep them somewhat streamlined, so we're going to sew them closed, drop into 1,800 feet of water, rig a bait that is not going to spin. If it's doing any kind of a spin, you got to pull it in and readjust, because by the time that thing hits the bottom in 1,800 feet of water, it's going to be spun up and wrap your whole leader up. So just trying to get something that sinks in a straight line and doesn't spin at all.
An aquatic knight, an ancient warrior with a broadsword a third of its body length. At one time, harpoons were the only way to take it out. A Moby Dick scenario. One of the 10 fastest animals on the planet and armed with superpowers, specifically a heating mechanism in their brain and eyes, enabling it to hunt in the cold, dark depths it calls home.
But it's amazing, these fish. I mean, they literally swimming at depths that would crush a submarine. Can't even go near the depth that these things can. They can literally go from the bottom straight to the surface, jump, and then swim straight back down to the bottom. Pretty crazy how deep they can go.
Swords make no exception on what they attack. Ships, submarines, and oil rigs have all felt their blow. Even when the latest fishing technology evens the playing field, the fight still can take hours. The gateway to the Atlantic is Palm Beach Inlet, one of the deepest inlets in Florida. A lot of fish come through this spot, from jacks to sails. But where the water meets the land, it's beachgoers, pier rats, and surfers. Beyond the beach is the bay boat playground. Nearshore species galore. Watch out for the breakers. Past the continental shelf, the bottom drops out, and the Gulf Stream rips by. This is the closest the Gulf Stream gets to the continental United States. Offshore fishing damn near within sight of land. You still get the wicked weather, 8-foot swells, and rain falling in buckets. The results transforming the cockpit into a live well. The right gear is essential to sword fishing. Don't bring a bay boat to a center console's fight. That's why the fast, rugged Yellowfin 36 offshore made the trip to Palm Beach. On board, the Simrad NSS 12 Evo 2 combines a chart plotter, broadband sonar, and HD structure scan in one touchscreen unit. The boat is powered by triple 300 Mercuries. That much big engine power is necessary when covering a lot of ground. Compact, leak-proof, and armed with a shoulder strap, the Yeti Flip 12 is a soft cooler for hardcore conditions. Our rod and reel setup, a Pen 80 International with a Hooker electric detachable reel. It reaches the furthest fathoms to fight the deepest fish. Spiderwire's stealth camo braid is key to fighting swords. Costa sunglasses have heavy-duty polarized lenses for optimal clarity during long days in the sun. A custom fiberglass replica by King Sailfish release mounts captures your trophy down to the finest detail. Salty throws a 12-pound weight. Fastest route to anywhere is a straight line, and deep dropping requires the least amount of slack possible. That ain't easy when there's a half a mile of line in the water. For the trip back up, this electric reel has one of the fastest retrieves. Reeling manually? Imagine an arm wrestling match that lasts longer than a sitcom.
It's great to be hands-on and catch a fish manually, but you know, when you're talking a 10-pound lead in 1,700 feet of water, you'll be dead before you even get the lead off the rock.
The prep and tackle extends to what you wear. Modern-day chainmail is needed.
These are Kevlar. You can actually saw on them with a knife and nothing's going through. If you use cotton gloves or some of the rubber gloves, the orange rubber gloves, that fish could literally cut right through. I'm using the gloves that I use when I'm lobster diving. They're made of Kevlar, and it's really important to have a good glove. If you even think about grabbing the bill, don't grab it with an ordinary glove because their bill will cut right through.
Armor on. Weapons at the ready. The battle has begun. Salty takes us further offshore for swords. These fish require a lot of backup. It takes a boat, a few humans, an armful of electric reels, rods, bait rigged just the right way. And add to that, a captain with 30 years of experience. Consider this brain teaser that Salty breaks down for us.
The current here is going very hard from the south to the north, but actually our bait is on the south side of the boat. So the bow of the Gulf Stream, which is in the first 600 or 800 feet of the water column, is ripping to the north, and that causes a belly in the line. Even though we're using very light braid, it's pushing the line and jumping the weight along the bottom and above the bottom. So our bait is actually in front of the boat. When we hook a fish, he's up there. It seems like bumping it in and out of gear, the bait should be that way, but it's the direct opposite. So.
After the drift, we hook up.
Uh-oh. You know, typically you have to look at 1,800 feet of line out and a 10-pound lead, so it's not like a crazy fight where they're screaming line here and there. We have a 150-foot wind-on leader and they're dragging this lead. What you see as it's coming up, it's stopping the line. I mean, there's definitely a fish on there. Typically the main part of the fight starts as you unclip the lead and the fish is within 200 or 300 feet of the surface. He's swimming this way, there he is. Little guy.
Try to put your gear the other way so we get sun on.
Bringing the sword boatside, we get a better look.
This fish is very close to a keeper. You look at the size of his eye, it's just gigantic. I mean, that's the size of a baseball. That's how they can see on the bottom like that. And this fish will swim right back down to the bottom in 1,500 feet of water.
Salty has done this many times over, but he still gets a rush from it.
Awesome.
Let her go for another day. She'll be another angler's story to tell. We may have released a couple, but we met someone who has pardoned untold thousands of fish. He runs a business aimed at protecting all species, thereby keeping us fishing another day. A few miles south in Fort Lauderdale, hidden amidst a row of industrial warehouses, is one of the most well-known and award-winning taxidermists in the country, King Sailfish Release Mounts. Ray Douglas, founder and president of King Sailfish, reinvented the game of taxidermy. His mantra, no fish shall be harmed for these fiberglass recreations. So how did you start? What was the start of the whole thing?
Well, we were kind of in the right place at the right time. The taxidermy industry had learned how to produce fish using composite materials, but they hadn't learned how to sell them yet to the customers. So it created a huge opportunity for somebody to come in and introduce the release mount concept. People didn't know that they didn't have to let their fish go. Thousands of fish were being killed every year needlessly and being hauled off to landfills.
Ray's defining moment was realizing he didn't actually need the fish to create the mount. It was a giant leap forward for the budding catch and release crusade. Even after that milestone, the process continued to improve.
Well, I guess the biggest change has been in the painting. Back in the old days, we used to tear pictures out of magazines and use those as reference material. Now we have the computer and the internet, and we can get such great reference shots, and that's really helped a lot.
And a lot from the people themselves, right?
And of course from the customers. Yeah, almost every customer now sends a photo. Plus the fact that people now realize you don't have to kill the fish. So a lot more fish are now being released rather than killed.
Now, the ins and outs. Ray walks us through the process, from customer inquiry to completion.
An angler catches a fish, and they call us up and they let us know that the fish has just been released.
Yeah, baby.
Place their order sometimes on the phone. Hello. Sometimes they place their order online. They send us images of their fish. And then we take that image and we determine the size. We pull the appropriate size mold. And then we cast the fish, paint it according to photograph, and then get shipped out here in the grading department.
You could call this new style of mounting a conservation movement, but it all started modestly with a childhood experience that Ray had with his father.
My father took me deep sea fishing for the first time. We rented a charter boat and went out and hooked a fish, and when we got the fish to the back of the boat, the mate reached over and grabbed the fish without me even seeing it and said, "Do you want to get it mounted or do you want to let it go?" And my father and I didn't know what to do, so we kind of looked at each other, and in that moment of hesitation, they brought the fish on the boat, they clubbed it over the head, and the rest of the day they pressured us into getting that fish mounted. And it was such a bad experience that I always remembered that, and always thought maybe somebody should try to do something about this.
And Ray did just that. The monster lies ahead. Over 500 pounds of pissed off. Down it goes again. 200-pound braid as thick as piano wire descending into the darkness. When a sword is on, the electric reel gets put into reverse, the motor straining and whining. Even with this slow, methodical tug of war, what's coming next is unpredictable.
We're good. We just moved the fish up to the front rod holder. With these outboard boats with multiple motors, these fish love getting under the boat and trying to get into your wheels. And say number one reason for losing fish on a boat like this, the ones that are hooked to it, is getting them in the motor. So we're gonna fish it up here off the front quarter of the boat. Anything that happens, we can always back away from it. She's just dogging me, got about 150 yards of line out.
"500 pounds of pissed off." The sword skyrockets up from the depths. Then boom, back down it goes. It's smart enough to know your coordinates and use them against you.
Pick up that rod, pick up the rod, pick up the rod, pick up the rod. Jason, neutral.
It bobs and weaves from bow to stern, line getting wrapped in the prop. The rod and reel may be the tools, but you're fighting with the boat. And just like that, she's gone.
Damn it.
That's the problem with fish. They don't know we're making a TV show. No pictures, no proof, no fortune and glory. That's the thing when you're after the fantastical, whether it's a sea monster or Bigfoot. Until you find it, you keep chasing it. For now, the hand-me-down fish stories will have to suffice. Granted, most of the stories we hear sound like this.
Watch your hands, watch your hands!
But we're really like this. Then there's Salty. No fake news here.
We had one I caught up north that was one of the bigger ones I've ever caught. We fought it on a 130 with somebody in the chair, and it was an epic, epic battle. We hooked it like a couple hours before sunrise and fought it till an hour and a half after the sun came up. I mean, it was pretty epic. And then when we pulled it in the boat, we thought it was dead, and the owner sprayed it with the saltwater washdown, and it proceeded to chop his teak deck to pieces.
From supermoon to cold fronts, we invested in the long days on the water, only to get a few frames of this creature of chaos, like some paranormal aberration in an old photo. Hardly enough to turn skeptics into believers. We leave Palm Beach with a few what-ifs and a whole lot of almost. But we're not done. We can't be. As Bigfoot can tell you, mysteries are way more interesting when left unsolved. When the target never surrenders, the search never ends.